Thank you so much. Thank you. Many years ago, I was rummaging through the attic in my parents' house, my father having died not long before. I came across a newspaper from 1953. It was carefully preserved, and soon I could see why. It was the coronation edition. The young queen seated on the giant throne in Westminster Abbey, the crown poised above her head by the Archbishop. Oh yes, I remember. The coronation was in 1953. But right next to it, I found a battered old suitcase my father used to use when he left us for long periods, his absence shaping much of my childhood. Ah yes, I remember. And it stopped me in my tracks. There's an Egyptologist called Jan Assmann who talks about two types of memory, what he calls cold memories and hot memories. Cold memories leave you much as you were before. Hot memories jolt, shake you, turn you. They rock your world. They're life-changing. Cold memories, you can keep at a distance. I remember that Queen Elizabeth was crowned in 1953, though I was not alive then, please note. I remember that Julius Caesar died in 44 BC. These memories don't make a lot of difference now to the way I live. They're cold memories. Cold memories aren't necessarily dull. They can be fascinating. On the History Channel, you learn about the pharaohs of Egypt, the emperors of Rome, or further back, the dinosaurs. It's fascinating stuff. But to be honest, I've never thought much about dinosaurs in between programs about dinosaurs. Cold memories I can keep at a distance. Cold memories skim off the surface of our lives, touching the surface but never going deeper. And sometimes they're very cold indeed. You know, some of us like to gather completely useless facts about the past, pieces of history that couldn't possibly help anyone. Coca-Cola was originally green. The only president to remain a bachelor was James Buchanan. Just two of the gems from a website called 100 Totally Useless Facts. Lots of us spend a lot of time with useless facts, facts which we can keep at a distance, until we glance at a wedding photo on the table next to the front door, or a battered old suitcase in an attic. Hot memories can't be kept at a distance because they're right there, closer than breathing. Worship is where cold memories become hot. That's what Paul believes happens at the Lord's Supper, as we've just heard. Do this in remembrance of me, says Jesus, the night before he dies. Whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death, says Paul. The memory is the memory of the cross. But at Corinth, that memory's gone cold, chilly. And it's Paul's job to reheat it, to turn the cold memory into a hot memory. What turns the cross from being a cold memory into a hot memory at the Lord's Supper, or indeed anywhere else in worship? First of all, remembering that we were there. Suppose you were unfortunate enough to get involved in a legal battle with IWS. Jim Hart has said something rude about Baptists, and you're offended. and you want compensation. So you hire a lawyer to fight your case in court. Now, if he's any good, the lawyer will carry your hopes with him. In that courtroom, he carries your arguments, your concerns, your longings. That's what representation means. Now, you may not say anything yourself in the hearing, but you are there in him. When we remember Jesus turning his face to Jerusalem, we remember we were there in him. There in his anguish in Gethsemane is yours. You'll panic at what you might have to face this week at work, or next month in the hospital ward. There in his bewilderment is your bewilderment at why God allows this trauma to happen to you. There in his abandonment at Golgotha is yours when you're left high and dry by those you thought you could trust most. We were there in him. And of course it goes deeper than that. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh yes, of course. We were the ones who divided his clothes. We who like to use Jesus when it suits us. We are the ones who clamored for his blood and pounded in the nails. We who would often wish Jesus wasn't around. Were you there? Oh yes, we were there. And it causes me to tremble. Hot memories often do. What else turns the cross from being a cold memory into a hot memory? Remembering that we are what we are today because of what happened then. How else can we explain what we see right from the start in the Christian movement? A crazy hodgepodge of Jew, Gentile, male, female, slave, free, young and old, rich and poor, together because of what happened then. And at Corinth, yes, they remember the cross, but the memory's grown cold. So what happens? And when the memory of the cross goes cold, as it does here, social hierarchies, divisions, cliques, factions. And at the very place where all that ought to be banished, worship. So what does Paul do? He reminds them, you lot wouldn't be together if it wasn't for what happened then. There God deals with the sin which divides us. There God brings us so low we can't look down on anyone else. And that's why we end up with what we have here at IWS, this bizarre bunch of weirdos called out from all over the world, speaking multiple languages, people who would normally be together and would normally have nothing to do with each other. Just think of it. You choose to spend hours and hours here with people you didn't choose, and that you might never choose. Why? Because of the memory of the cross. A hot memory. And then one more thing. What else turns the cross from being cold memory into a hot memory? Remembering that we have a new future because of what happens there. The cross breaks open a new future. I remember talking with my mother about VE Day in 1945. She said for her and thousands of others, the overwhelming sense was a sense of release, a sense that a huge dark cloud had been lifted, that they didn't have to be ruled by some ominous menace on the horizon, that a new future was now possible. At any gathering like this, behind the smiles and the backslapping and all that which is great, there'll be some who feel utterly overwhelmed at the moment by dark powers that threaten their lives and threaten to stifle them. How easy to believe that they will have the last word, that they are ultimate, that they are the true story, the ultimate story. What powers? The power of failure, the tattered relationship, the meeting we disastrously mishandled. The power of cynicism. We'll never get that job. We'll never raise the money. This church will never last. The power of regret. The hurtful words we let out and can't take back. The love we never gave to our own children or those we said we love most. The cross and the raising of Jesus, the raising of the crucified Jesus, tell us these things have no ultimate future. They're real now, yes, but their power has been snapped and can't be unsnapped. A new future has been broken open. So Paul says, celebrate this meal until he comes, the final victory, the final future. The memory of the cross is a memory with a future, a hot memory. Final thought. You know, it's like when you go to a restaurant. When your food comes, you realize it's been left out somewhere and it's gone cold. So you complain. You call over the waiter. And if it's a good restaurant, they'll reheat it. At least in this country. In my country, you're more likely to be told, tough. What do you expect for £2.50? Just eat it up, stop complaining. But in this country, it's a country where the customer is king or queen, of course. I was in a restaurant in this country recently, and the waiter said something, when something like this happened, the waiter came and said, "Don't worry, sir. We specialize in turning things that are cold into things that are hot. It's what we do." What is worship? It's where cold memories are turned hot. It's what God does.